Well, thank you all for coming out. I'm Debbie Billion. I think most of you know who I am. I'm the horticulture agent. We've got Nancy Rutherford up here, who is our successful gardener coordinator. She's been setting these wonderful programs up, and you're in for a treat tonight, because you're gonna learn all about rose care. So we've got Jack and Robert and Jack here tonight. I met Robert, I guess a little bit over a year ago at a green industry event. And when he told me and gave me his card, I said, oh, I think it would be great to speak for our master gardener. So I shared his information with Nancy and she got in touch. And so I'm gonna let them tell you more about themselves and what they do. So take it away.
Well, good evening, everybody, and good evening to everyone at home. I know this is a Zoom presentation as well. So I will try to, in my best Southern drawl, speak clearly, and hopefully everybody can hear me. Again, my name is Jack Page, and this is Robert Myers, and we own a not so little company now called The Perfect Rose, which we started in 2007. And we install and maintain private rose gardens. And those can be commercial, they can be residential, some assisted living places. Catholic Diocese in Charlotte has a lot of roses, they're one of our bigger customers. So roses across the board. Some customers have as few as 3 roses, others have 150. So it's just crosses all socioeconomic levels. Just whoever loves their roses and wants them taken care of. So we provide that. Our backgrounds, Robert is from Pennsylvania and he has a associate's degree in horticulture. So not only does Robert know roses, he knows all plants. And the master gardeners there in Rowan County keep trying to get him to be a member. But because that was his education and he's dedicated his life to plants, he knows as much as they do. So he goes to all their events. They love him. So that's his background. He is in charge of the customers and making sure the work is getting done for our employees. My name again, I'm Jack, and I'm from North Carolina. I have a degree in architecture from NC State. And so that kind of helps with the business because I can help the clients understand what the garden is going to look like. And then Robert gets to make sure that it gets done. So
we're having problems with the people in virtual land not seeing the slides, right?
They were and then they weren't. Yep.
I haven't even changed.
I know.
So while we're working on that, I'll just continue with the introduction. They can hear me, right?
Yes.
So where was I?
I'm sorry.
It's like suddenly there's a
sorry.
here.
You were in North Carolina.
There you go.
You have a degree.
I was thank you. Am I still in North Carolina? Yeah, my degree was architecture. So I do most of the business development, marketing, talks like this, take care of all the accounting and that type of thing. So I retired from architecture totally in 2011 because the company was getting bigger. We now have, did I say 450 customers from Greensboro, High Point, Winston Salem, all the way down 77 and 85, Concord, Salisbury, Lake Norman, the entire Charlotte metropolitan area, and then on to Greenville, Spartanburg, and Columbia. Wow. So we have 4 other guys, full-time guys, and they are on the move all the time. So we've gotten it down to a science. And anyway, that's what we do. Both Robert and I are heavily involved in the American Rose Society. We've both been president and vice president of Rowan's Rose Society, and I'm currently president of Charlotte's Rose Society. And
we're members of Columbia Rose Society, Winston-Salem Rose Society,
South Carolina.
So, yeah.
So, and we love to be involved in the Rose Societies because, to some degree, we're out there taking care of roses and they're a great support system for us. And we try to support them as well. So we try to give back to the Rose Societies because they do refer people to us that may not want to take care of their roses anymore, but don't want to give up their roses. So anyway, that's kind of a little background on us. And let's see, we'll get started here. In order to maintain roses for someone else, anytime you spray anything, including even Roundup, if you spray it for someone else for profit, you need a pesticide license. So we maintain licenses in North and South Carolina, and we try to have every member of our staff have their own. They don't have to do that because they can ride under our umbrella, but we try to encourage all of our guys to have their own pesticide license, just so they go through the training and they understand how important that is, how to use chemicals properly. This is a good indication of all the things we do. Installation, then the contract maintenance, spraying, pruning, fertilizing, weeding, staking, labeling, irrigation. And what's funny about that is, and we have a brochure up here, if any of you would like to take one or know somebody that has roses that may be interested in our company. But in the very beginning, in 2007, we hired a website developer, and we have a great website, perfectrose.com. Please go and take a look. It has maintained all these years and is still really good. And if you were to Google Rose Expert, our site comes up before the American Rose Society. I don't know what they did, but it is wonderful. But anyway, I had these wonderful color brochures designed, and we sent them to the printer, and they made a mistake and printed 900 of them. Now, we were just getting started. So, and they're like $1.50 a piece or something because they're colored, and they're thick. And anyway, and of course, just like that slide, it lists the things that we do. Well, after all 900 of those were gone a couple of years later, and I went to get new ones,
Mistake.
I noticed there was a mistake. And where it said staking, we had given away 900 brochures that said stalking. So, in addition to rose care, we are professional stalkers.
This is the South.
So if you want to know where your husband or wife is, you give us a call. So today we're going to talk about the 12 months of rose care. And luckily, we're not too far into the new year, so it won't take us very long to get caught up with where we are. January, and what I'm going to discuss, this is the same talk I would give to this group or to a rose society. And this is kind of, the method you go through if you're a rose lover, the things you need to do. So we're going to start with January. And of course, in January, we apply dormant oil to our roses. And that's the same as just this horticultural oil that you all may use on a lot of your other plants as well. Like
It can be used on camellias. It gets a little T-scale on the back side, little white dots. A lot of your different plants, the oil, so you can do the roses as well as doing your other plants. So,
yeah.
Okay, I'll see the dummy and ask, what does that do for me?
Well, what that does, that's a very good question. What that does.
Jeff, can you repeat the question?
Oh, the question is, what does dormant oil do for you? And the answer to that is it coats the plant. It gives an oily coating. It helps to seal off any damage that may be on the plant. If there's any residual spores from your black spot or anything like that, it will kind of suffocate them. Plant insect eggs that may be overwintering or scale or something like that. It helps to suffocate that.
even like on your crepe myrtles, sometimes you see where they're black.
Yeah.
You spray that on it, and then that fungus that's on it can't, it suffocates it, so then you won't have it here.
And this is some kind of oil that's okay to put out there in the world.
Oh, yes, they've been using that since way back when I was in college, and that was back in '84,
Well,
so,
but
yes.
back
Long
then,
time.
we also used to take the oil after we changed the oil in our car and put it in
That's
that.
different type of oil.
Totally different. It's not
Totally
the type
different type of oil.
So, okay, so this is environmentally.
It's
Yes.
environmental, yes.
And again, you can buy this at Lowe's right off the shelf. All of the products use, we don't get into a lot of chemicals in this discussion, like specific chemicals, but any chemical we use are, they're over the counter. We get them wholesale. But anybody can get them. They're not restricted use.
Do you then do you then prune and then reapply?
We're gonna talk about pruning shortly, but that's a great question. And the question was, for those at home, if you prune, can you then apply the dormant oil? It's good to do that because when you're pruning, you're leaving exposed damage, so to speak, on the rose. And this will help seal that because there are consequences after you've pruned. And we get those almost freezing cold rains. And you can get some fungus that gets in there. It's called a black canker, and we'll see a slide of that too. Yes, ma'am.
It's now March. If you did not apply this in January, is it too late to do now?
The question is it too late to apply dormant oil now? And the answer to that is no. You could do that now. A lot of people don't apply it until they have pruned, and pruning should start occurring now.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
So you're in good shape. You can still do it. You don't want to apply that oil when it's hot, when it's 50, sunny and 50, 60, 70 degrees. That's getting a little warm. So,
Early morning is the
Okay.
best time.
and your leaves if you spray it on the roses, it may defoliate, but that's okay. That's not a problem. They're going to regenerate new leaves. And if you had black spot or anything, it's probably
You
even
just do
better.
this when you just have basically the bare stalks, no foliage.
Well, when we initially spray, they can be covered in foliage and it's
In
okay.
January. In
In
January.
January, they can still have foliage on them, so it's okay. And if they fall off, it's fine. It's even better because then you can get rid of it.
This year, a lot of your roses have lost a lot of their leaves, and that was due to all the snow that we had. The snow was for so long, and you'll notice it on a lot of different plants where they turn brown or the damage was on them. And that is all due to the snow, which we don't usually see for a week, 2 weeks, as it was this year.
But that's the number one thing, you would do in your rose garden and for our customers as well. In January, we apply dormant oil to their roses. Other things that we do in January, that's a good time to sharpen your tools if you're out in the garage and need something to do to get away from it all. Also, check the pH of your soil. Who knows what the pH of roses like the soil to be?
7? No, all of roses though, I don't know.
Very close, 6.5. And now we have there's a lot of people that zero in on that number. Roses can grow fine if it's 7 or, less or more. It's just that is the point with the pH of the soil that it can absorb the most amount of nutrients and, all the different things it needs to absorb. That creates the perfect environment for the majority of those nutrients it needs to absorb. So it's best to try to stick to that. Any questions on that? Have you had your shots? Why do we need shots?
Because they're roses.
Because they're roses, they have thorns, they'll give you a shot, but tetanus, of course. So we all need, as gardeners, there's some wicked stuff living in the soil. So please be sure you keep up with that. Inventory your roses. January is a great time to figure out if you need to make changes in your garden. So do I have room for one more? Emily wrote, now Robert is a rose guy. He's known all across. I didn't get into the fact that he's an international judge. Robert has judged roses in France, Denmark, Australia, New Zealand, Uruguay. So anyway, now he has a private garden. How many roses do you think Robert grows? Anybody?
None.
1,000.
Oh.
And we just built our new house and the new garden is going in and it should hold about 1,000. So it will be one of the largest, I would say, multi-varietal rose gardens in the Southeast, private. private rose garden.
Like Biltmore, it has a lot of roses,
Yeah.
but Biltmore has a lot of masses of
Same one.
same ones per se in a bed versus in my beds, I may have two or three of the same thing, but I mean, I have a lot of other things, like with roses, there's so many different types from Chinas to species to, which is species were the originals at first, and then the Chinas were after that, and then it goes out from that. So kind of, and the mosses, there's a lot of different mosses too. So the mosses have almost like a hair, like on the sepals of the rose, there's little, almost like a chestnut look to it before it comes out, and then it opens up and then it blooms basically. So there's many different.
Very strange looking rose. It
Yeah.
looks like it's covered in moss. It's real strange. It's like those fish. You see some of those fish that are covered in all kinds of stuff. It's kind of what it looks like, those clownfish or whatever. So when you inventory your roses, the reason you need to do that January, February is because particularly since COVID, it's hard to, they're going to sell out. All of your resources are going to sell out. We are selling out. We get about 2,000 for our customers. And so they're selling out already. It's just March. So half the customers haven't even realized that it's spring yet. And, you know, they wait until it gets warm like today. And then it's like, oh, I need 20 more. So be sure you inventory your roses because most of your mail order, David Austin, Edmonds, that's a great, Edmonds is a great place, Edmonds Roses. David Austin, Jackson and Perkins. If you go to their websites now, you're going to start seeing sold out, sold out, sold out. So you really need to make your order in January if you can, or February. January is a great time to prepare your new rose bed because you don't want to be out there digging in 95 degrees.
No.
So it's a great, you know, when it's 50 degrees outside or 45 degrees, that's when you want to be digging in the soil. So that's another thing we do. January, really November through January is when we're preparing the soil for our new customers' beds. And then we install them in March. But of course, it's usually cold. It wasn't today, but enjoy a cup of hot chocolate and, you know, gear up because spring is coming as we see. I think spring has sprung. Talk a little bit about preparing the proper rose bed. What do roses need more than anything?
Sun.
Sun. They need sun and water. If they have those two things, you've got to go. Roses need about 6 hours of full sun. I tend to think they do better if they get the morning sun because it dries the leaves off faster. Roses that get just the late afternoon sun are going to have to deal with the heat, and also they're not drying in the morning, and that can create issues with powdery mildew or some of the black spot if the leaves are staying wet longer. But what we also like to do is raise the bed. Roses do not like wet feet. They like a lot of water, but they like to dry out a little bit in between the water. So we raise the bed because we have that great North Carolina clay. And if you just dig a hole and stick a rose in it, you get a rainy week, it's going to drown it. So if you raise the beds, you are not going to overwater your roses. So in order to prepare that, you know, we usually mark out with the customer, whether with a hose or with spray paint or whatever, we'll mark out where the bed is. A lot of times we have to remove the sod if they have yard and they're taking over yard space for that. And then in this picture, you'll notice that Robert is turning the soil a shovel deep. He started here and he's moving backwards and he's just sticking in a shovel depth and turning it over. And you see it just kind of pre-tills the soil there. Then we add amendments. So what do we put in the soil? We have clay, so that has a lot of iron and that type, you know, minerals in it. So pretty much the clay can be acidic. So we put lime in there, so a little bit of lime. We also put a product, which you'll see down at the very bottom, permatil. And that's, if you want to come up later and look at this, it's like a crushed lava rock. And what that does is it helps our clay drain, because you do want those beds not to sit in water. So we do that. Then, of course, you really need a like compost type material. You need an organic material, just so it's not just the clay. There's a company, I can't remember their name now, here in Charlotte, or actually it's in Monroe, that we get our leaf compost for, that we're putting in our own beds. And that stuff is true leaf compost. It is black as soot, and it is wonderful. The roses do great when you put.
The roses that I planted last summer, and for fall, they bloomed, and some of them got bigger than I've ever seen any roses. It was really good stuff.
It really is. And what you do is when you till the soil, you put about 4 inches of your organic material on there. You know, sometimes you use whatever you have. It can be leaf mulch, it can be mushroom compost, worm castings, any kind of organic thing, just to get the soil to come alive. But we add those items. Then you see he rototills it all in.
Yeah, he had the kitty litter, because that's for further south.
Yeah, you wonder what kitty litter is for. Our Columbia customers have very sandy soil. So we have to put clay in their soil so that it helps hold the water a little more. So that's great. I know in times when we're putting in big gardens in Columbia, I go to Walmart and buy those huge bags of you don't want the clumping kind, you just want that cheap clay. And I know I've checked out with a buggy full of this cheap clay, and the clerk, it's happened on numerous occasions. They look at you and they're like, you must have a lot of cats. I'm like, no, it's for a rose bed. And then you get the bewildered. What in the world? So that can be kind of funny. And here you see, after it's been rototilled, they pull it in from the sides and they make a mound towards the middle. And then the roses we stagger them about 3 feet apart, is what's normally associated with proper spacing of a hybrid tea or a Floribunda. And then we put an irrigation line down the center and mulch it, and that's a rose bed. So this, of course, being the hardest part of that process. Now we get a lot of landscapers, a lot of customers say, well, my landscaper is going to prepare the soil for me. We've yet to ever see one do that. They'll come in and put 4 inches of topsoil and say, there's your bed.
On top of the sod.
On top of, yeah, exactly, probably on top of the sod. So they wonder why that's so expensive, but that's why. And it's manual labor to get that done. We charge about, like for a bed like that, if it's 20 roses, it's $135 a rose. But you get everything, including the rose and the irrigation line down the middle. So it's really not bad when you, unless we had a customer call from Columbia the other day, she wants 135 roses in a rose bed. And so do the math. That's a big one. So, yeah.
Did you have questions?
How deep do you go
Just a
in?
shovel bed.
It's a shovel depth.
Okay.
You're going about that deep.
Okay.
Now at the new house, where some of these beds that were just getting done, because the bulldozers ran over that over and over and over again, it is so compacted that our guys, we even got the big commercial rototiller, the tillers in the back. It would not cut through it. So we ended up having to bring, like these landscapers do, we brought the topsoil in.
But
We tried to dig it as much as
deep.
we could.
It was deep soil.
Very deep, and then we put that, and then we have metal edging now going up, but soil is very important. That's that pH and the nutrients in the soil, half the battle. Any questions on the rose bed? I want to talk a little bit more about the permatill with the next slide.
I see that that's right next to a driveway. It doesn't affect it, the cement.
It can, you have to watch that. You'll need to keep the surface watered a lot. If you have little bubblers and you're not getting water covering the mulch, you can have spider mites. That's probably the worst thing. is a lot of times sidewalks, people that put roses on brick walls that get that afternoon sun, they tend to be more likely to have a spider mite.
All depending on how much you water.
Right.
The more you water, the less problems you get.
Because they like hot and dry. Spider mites like hot and dry. And if it stays really dry on top, you just have to really watch that. So there are additional benefits of the permatil. How many of you have these little devils in your yard?
Well, I buy permit by the truck.
Yeah,
Oh, excellent.
yes.
Where do you get it in Charlotte
Oh,
or around here?
oh,
I mean, there's places that sell it just
yeah,
as permatil. Okay,
and it's
Site 145.
site one, thank you.
okay, awesome, excellent. Yeah, it's great because the voles hate it, but
But you have to have an awful lot of it.
we put,
They don't hate it that bad.
well, you saw in that bed that we had just showed the slide of, that was all what you were seeing him pour was the permatil. We put a lot.
Yeah,
When
well,
it's heavy clay, we put a lot.
You have to.
I put it around my hostas because, up in the mountains, we have a mountain house and I put that around my hostas up there. No voles have bothered them at all. And they've been 7-8 years now. They're huge now, hostas, because I thought hostas like more of a real moist soil.
Mhm.
No, the permatil is really a good product to use in your hostas.
She grows hostas,
Mhm.
so that's why she's had.
But I also put mine in mesh baskets. And permatil around the outside and in the soil.
Well, you know what else you need?
A cat.
I can't.
You know what else you need?
Another.
Oh.
Who knows what that is?
Extra band.
Cancer beans.
Moles and voles hate castor oil. And so you can go online and Google that to find out, you can mix castor oil and Dawn dishwashing liquid and just spray.
It's over the
On there.
surface.
It's kind of like it's something to try. I'm not saying that it's,
I try anything. I'm thrilled to try anything because I like hostas and when they can't get to the hosta, they'll eat anything.
When these are blooming, that's what it's kind of going over, the scent of it is all, and so then you really don't see much of that. But what he's saying, you could do that other times of the year.
Is it going to, does it bother other animals, dogs or anything? No.
no, they might not like it.
I know
It's
it's
not
poison, but
It's very poisonous and it's hard to find the seed sometimes.
It's the seeds that are poisonous.
Yeah, the seeds, exactly, that are poisonous. And but the seeds, as you see, they're like almost like a chestnut effect. So I wouldn't think you'd want to, but I guess if you're stupid enough to want to eat it, I guess. But
Survival.
yeah, exactly.
It's a beautiful plant though. There's
And
none.
if you do plant it, you would want to plant it in the very, very back of your garden because they get very tall.
They're big.
They get 7-8 feet tall, they can.
But they also need full sun, don't they?
They do need some sun, yes.
and I have a lot of shade.
Your question back here?
I didn't know if you have voles or moles or gophers in terms of,
The question is, how do you know if you have voles, moles, or gophers? The gophers, I'm not sure about, but if you have voles, you probably have moles because they're traveling, from what I understand, they're traveling in the moles' tunnels. And the moles are in there trying to get the grubs. You know, they're digging, they create these tunnels and then the vole comes in and gets a free ride under there with all the roots hanging down and they start eating everything inside. So
They're cousins, they're related, so that's, they,
The way to remember, it, moles are meat eaters, so they're going for the insects and grubs in the soil. The voles are vegetarians, so they're gonna eat your roots and the tops of the plants, garden plants.
excellent. I have.
It's a nice way to remember.
All righty, well, we're gonna jump now into February. February is the big month. Some people wait and do pruning in March, but we start for our customers in Columbia and then we move north. And so February is pruning. And one thing roses really like is to be pruned. Don't be afraid. If that's a healthy rose, you can hack away. So how do you prune roses? When you walk up to that rose, it's very daunting at first because you're like, what do I do? So remember the D's. You first you sit there and you think, okay, I'm going to remove all the dead wood. Then anything that's diseased, if it just isn't a healthy cane, get rid of it. Diagonal, things that are growing into the center or crossing over another cane, because those canes can rub, and that's where you can get damage and fungicide problems. And dinky, if it's pencil size and this is spring prune, get rid of it. One example we like to use is the hand. You clean out the center and leave your healthy canes around the perimeter facing out. And so here you see, this was the rose before he pruned it. He took out all of this. And can you see the similarity between the hand and here the center is clear and the radiating canes out from there. And so that's it. If you just take your time, you can always start if you've got a pretty tall bush, if it was really healthy, you can go ahead first and just cut it on down just to get that stuff from catching your eyeball or whatever. But that's the goal. You just reduce it down. Some people say 3 to 5 canes, but if it's a healthy cane, you leave it on there. Don't worry about number of canes. You can always take it out later. You can always we can have that April freeze that could damage one of those canes. So if you've already reduced it to 3, suddenly you're going to have 2.
And how short should you cut them?
Question is, how short should you cut them? For the most part, knee height, 18 inches or so. Knockouts. Let's talk about knockouts a little bit. If you have knockouts, this is a great time to prune your knockouts. You can reduce them by half or more. If they're healthy, you can't hurt them.
And they're all on their own root, so.
Yeah, they're not grafted.
They're not grafted versus grafted, you have to worry about the cold more, so versus knockouts, you can even do your knockouts if you really want to in December. If they don't get cold damage, once you prune them, they're ready for spring then. If you want to do it in December, you can do that then because they're on their own root and it's not going to hurt them.
You can actually prune a knockout anytime. You can go in the middle of summer and cut that thing in half and it's fine. As long as it's healthy, it's getting water. The only problem with that is you're cutting off your blooms. So you're going to wait 5 weeks before it reblooms. But you can just knockouts. Now your hybrid teas, you wouldn't want to go hacking those in half or anything. Yes, ma'am.
February prune, like banana prune, no leaves, right?
If you had black spot and you had a problem with fungus, you probably should remove them. If you did not, if your maintenance pack and you didn't have any black spot, you can actually leave them because it helps to have some on there because the plant can start using the sun to make the food.
Yeah.
So yes, if you didn't have any issues with
the
fungus,
initial one was no leaves and then the rest of the year.
right, now we do, when we prune our customers like that, we strip them just because they're expecting no disease on their road. And so that's the way we can help guarantee they get a
So there's no way for the bugs there's no way for that to carry if you
Correct.
do if you just so rule of thumb for me should just be February, strip them down,
correct.
like strippers.
And you can do that, you can really do that anytime that after they go to sleep, after your first freezes in November, December, or whatever. It's just that I would wait a little longer. Just like I said, you never know how cold it's really going to get. And particularly if you have hybrid teas that are grafted, they can be a little iffy. So, and it doesn't hurt to wait, March, it's fine.
Yeah.
Is there a question?
Yeah, how about a climbing rose?
A climbing rose, that's a very good question, how to prune a climbing rose. You really don't want to do a lot of pruning on a climbing rose this time of year because you could potentially be cutting off the bloom. We will prune them kind of heavy in August or September. Cause they're kind of ugly anyway, because they suffered through the hot summer, so that kind of brings out a lot of new growth in the fall. And then, you can tie it back to the structure, that kind of thing. But in the spring, unless it's just some wispy stuff, you can cut that off, but your main body of your climber, I would prune after you get that first blush of blooms on them. And particularly if you have an old garden rose, that rose is probably only gonna bloom once anyway.
Yeah.
So you don't want to prune it until after it's bloomed.
Yeah, mine is a Joseph's Oak Rose.
Mhm.
And it also has one of the original canes that's dead looking, so I should just go ahead and get rid of that.
Yes,
And I mean, on some of the canes that are there, I already have new growth coming out on them.
and that's fine. I mean, in the south here in North Carolina, our roses really do not go totally dormant like they do up north. So you can have growth. What will happen is more than likely, we will get that freeze late March and it may die back, but that's normal. It's not.
Well, I had cut it back some in the fall, but then it grew so much. I mean, this thing can get not to be tall.
Mhm.
So I went ahead and cut off the ones that were really tall,
Right,
but it's still doing well.
right. And it's, do what works for you. I can sit up here and tell you all a million things to do, and you may do something different and have totally great results, and that's what you need to do. Because gardening, as we know, is not a exact science.
And so when you were talking about how to prune a rose that's in the ground, like, like a bush, do you use those same concepts when you're pruning the climb rose?
Well, you want to cut the dead out. You want to keep
The dead is the biggest thing for climbers. Climbers, you don't really need to take as much off on those because like you said earlier, you're cutting off a lot of your bloom if you do too much. Because they're meant to be bigger than some of your others would be.
But that's pruning. It really isn't that difficult. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, so with that, with the climbing rose, is it still like the 4 or 5, or a lot of times it seems like there's 2 or 3? Is it better to have 2 or 3?
On a climbing rose?
Yeah.
Is it better to leave? The question is it better to leave more canes or reduce it down? If they're healthy, I would not get rid of them. If they're damaged or they're showing signs of weakness or disease, I would cut them out. But if it's shaping the way you want it to and growing that way, I wouldn't worry about things. This is what happens if you've pruned your roses and we get that April week-long rain and it's 34 degrees. Where the little clicker is on the back and I'm used to it being on the sides. You can see where it's been cut and now it always starts from the top and goes down. This is that black kind of fungus, and it will help if you have dormant oiled and sealed those canes. You have a lot of people that put glue on them and stuff, but of course we do tens of thousands of roses. We don't have time to go glue every little end, and we don't see that it makes that much difference. The thing to do is when you notice that black starting, come down here and cut below it, go well below it. Because it doesn't always mean it will, but it can travel all the way down the cane and kill the whole thing. So anytime you see that black, get rid of it. Anytime during the year.
That's why we leave them up to our knee. Because if you cut it way low, then you have less space for it to go down.
You can always go back and cut it more. You can't put it back.
Kind of like when you go get your haircut. You can't put it back on once it's gone.
Yeah. So let's move on to March. Trust me, when it gets to April through October, we breeze through that. So we're not going to be here till 10 o'clock. So what do we do in March? Well, the good news is you plant your roses, your disease-resistant roses. Here are a few. Francis Mayond. It's a hybrid tea. It's a hybrid tea or grandiflora? Hybrid tea. Very tall. It's very tall. Nice fragrance, and it's relatively disease resistant. Belinda's Dream is a shrub rose that has kind of the hybrid tea form. It has the spiral center and it's very fragrant. And what's good about that rose, again, not only the disease resistance, but it has sturdy necks on the, it puts out tons, the bush gets covered in these blooms. And you can actually cut them and put them in a vase because they're a little bit thicker. So that is a great, if you want a shrub rose that blooms a lot, that's reasonably disease resistant, that's one you should look into. And most of the nurseries carry that.
A lot of nurseries carry.
It's a good one. March is when we fertilize our customers' roses. Now that we've been in business for a while, we're changing this a little bit because when you put 10-10-10, you're putting 10 phosphorus and 10 potassium in that ground as well. And those two things do not leach out of the soil quickly, the way nitrogen does. So what we're finding is we lime our customers' roses, the once a year, but what we're finding is when we do the soil test is that they're too high on the second tens. So what we have started doing now, if you have been liming your beds for a long period of time, do your soil test. You're going to see that you may have overlimed. But what we're doing instead of 10-10-10 is doing just urea, which is pure nitrogen. And of course, you only have to use a tablespoon of that around the rose. You might have to do it a little more often. Have to be careful not to burn it because that's pure nitrogen. But if you've done a lot of liming, that's a way to get it the nitrogen it needs with not continuing to pound it with those other two elements.
You just 30-00 or 46?
46 over there.
Is 46 the only one that's technically urea?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, because you just have to be careful with that. Now, all the roses, we do put the osmocote on there, about a cup per bush, work it around. That way it's getting fed a little bit throughout the year.
9 months?
Yeah, they have an 8 to 9 month one week, and that's what we usually use.
Because we try to do it once. Now, we do go back,
I'm not doing that.
depending on what service level you have. If you have the highest levels, you get fertilized pretty often. We do everybody in August, we go back and do like an organic Milorganite. I don't know if any of you have heard of that. We'll put some kind of organic fertilizer on them to really boost that fall growth.
So I'm doing all of those things. I'm doing 10-10-10, I'm doing urea, and I'm doing osmocote, or what am I doing?
You wouldn't do 10-10-10 if you're doing urea. That's because that's the 10-10-10.
Yeah, I'm just totally confused.
Yeah. Well, the osmocote is your extended release.
Does it take the place of it?
It's slow release.
It's slow release. You're putting it in there and it's going to kind of gradually feed your roses all year long. Then your 10-10-10 or your urea, you do that pretty much once, or you can do it really anytime. You just need to make sure you're watering really well particularly with the urea, because it's pure nitrogen. That's why you only use a tablespoon.
And you just do that once a year?
You would probably need to do that more times a year.
It's gonna
Give it a boost.
It's gonna leach out of the soil because you're going to be, especially when you're watering more, because nitrogen is one of the things that will leach out of the soil. That's why I was saying you can almost do the urea once a month if you wanted to. If you're watering, and when I say watering, roses usually, when they're on the system, usually you want to water a half an hour to 45 minutes every other day. So that's a lot more water than a lot of people put on their shrubbery and stuff like that. Because shrubbery doesn't need that once it's established versus roses. They need it because they're blooming all the time, and the blooming causes that needing a lot more water.
It needs the water, it needs the nitrogen. So,
yeah,
I mean, you could go out there with Miracle Grow and like if you have 5 roses, just water them with Miracle Grow, that helps. But yeah, I didn't mean for that to be confusing. You would do one or the other. You wouldn't do both on the 10-10-10 and urea.
Okay.
I probably shouldn't have even mentioned that. It's just
Well, no, I get that, I just don't know when to use the aspen with.
You could put that in the spring, if it's the 9 months, and you put the cup of bush, around and. Yeah,
Always,
it's not gonna hurt anything.
always when you put your fertilizer down, you do the mulch back and then put it over the top, because if you let the the fertilizer sitting on top of the soil. Or on top of your mulch, the sun. Depletes the fertilizer, so you're not going to get the use out of it. Because you want to cover that back up again, so that it's not just being exposed to the sunlight. So.
And once you've pruned your roses, we're here in March, it's good to replace your mulch. If you've had any kind of disease, black spot, that type of thing, those spores, once the rain hits it, they can splash back up on the plant. So always remove the old leaves, they fall, the dead leaves that are falling. Be sure you clear that out, keep a very neat garden, and then replace your mulch or refresh it, just add a little top layer. Something that if there are spores there, they don't splash back up. Mulch can be, for roses, can be anything. You can use pine needles, you can use pine bark, you can use hardwoods, as long as it's not just a freshly cut tree and it's green, because of course, while that's curing, it creates heat. And the last thing our roses need in a North Carolina summer is more heat. So any kind of cured mulch, it really doesn't matter. If you're liming them.
Even your colored mulches, people use that as well. It's not gonna. Yes.
So we have a lot of customers ask, what kind of mulch should I use? You can use whatever you want, because we're monitoring your soil. We're also liming and making sure that they're not getting too much acid. So here's where we cover a lot of ground. April through November is what we call our spray season. That is when you need to begin watering. Again, roses need a lot of water. Just as Robert said, a lot of people think that it's just a shrub that you put in the ground, but yet they need way more water than your azaleas or even just anything. They need a lot of water, particularly when it's getting really hot, the way we have.
How much is a lot in terms of inch, half an inch?
Well, it's hard to really gauge that. Particularly, it depends on what you're using to water. What you want is for it to water deeply. And so the best thing to do is you just turn your water on and see half an hour with whatever method you use, and go out there and dig down and see just how far did that get. You don't want to just keep the top. You don't want to water for 15 minutes, or if you hand water, of course, you're all gardeners know that you hand water just for 5 minutes, it's not going to get that much. You have to keep coming back for it to really sink in. So you just want to make sure that water is going a foot down or longer, deeper into the ground. So it's kind of hard to say, like how long. Customers say, well, how long should I keep my timer on for the water? Well, it depends on what's coming on. So if you have water suddenly running down your sidewalks and into the gutter, well, that's too much, because, so just kind of got to play that by ear. For us, yes, yes.
Is browning on the tip of leaves indicative of not enough water? I mean, logically, that's what we're taught.
Well, the leaves, the question is browning of the tips of the leaves indicate lack of water? Well, that could be heat stress, or pretty much that probably would let you know. Roses let you know whether they're being overwatered or underwatered, because the leaves turn bright yellow. And it can defoliate the plant, particularly if you grow them in containers. You'll notice that container dries out, you're gonna get a lot of bright yellow leaves on those
So
roses.
too wet or too dry, bright yellow, or
Yes.
just too
Yes,
dry?
but if you have raised beds or, well, you'll know.
Well, even putting your hand down and touching, you're gonna notice if it's really dry versus or very wet. I mean, if it's.
That's what I tell everybody, here's your best sensor.
Exactly. If the ground is cracking, we have customers that tell us, well, my irrigation is on. I know it is. We've turned it on. Have you seen it come out? It's on. You go to the house and maybe it's got one of those two-way directors or whatever, turned off. It's like you can't sit there and you kick up the dust. I don't think it's working. So,
Well, and some of them have even told me that, the irrigation guy, he turned that on, and I'm sure he did. And sure enough, they call him and say, and no, I haven't put it on yet. So it can be overlooked sometimes.
Yeah.
but the point is, it is very rare here in North Carolina to overwater your rose, because it's hot and dry during the summer. Now if you have just dug a hole in the soil, in the clay and put it in there, then yes, you can overwater it because it's not draining. But if you have them in a pot or that drains well, or you've raised the bed or put amendments in there, you're not gonna overwater them.
If you do have an irrigation system, you may put the little black tubing, they kind of cut through the hole and do the top cross on the top. And then you know that it's being watered. That's how I a lot of times tell people to do it if they do have an irrigation system, so that then it's being taken care of, and then you don't have to really worry about it, because once the irrigation comes on, the bubbler on the top will make it more water than like your irrigation that does your lawn. So it's going to do more because of the fact that it's in a smaller area, basically. Yeah.
So with watering, of course, if you're gonna water your roses, water them in the morning or right before the sun hits them. Because you don't want to water, we've had some customers before that kept getting black spot, and we just couldn't, like, why are these roses, we're spraying them? And it's because we found out the water was coming on at 4 a.m. and they were under an overhang of the house, and the sun wasn't hitting them until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So they were the leaves were sitting soaking wet all day. And so there you go. So begin your spray programs in April. Fungicide, insecticides, and I call them animal sides. How many of you have problems with deer and rabbits? We have some news for you. So, this is a great product if you're growing roses and you don't want to worry about spraying. You don't want to hire us. It's the all-in-one that used to be Bayer. Now it's Bio Advanced in the blue bottle at Lowe's, and it has the fertilizer, the insects, and the disease all in it. Now it's not going to give you perfect roses like we would grow for you, but it's really good. A lot of people in the rose societies use it. You just put a cap full around your rose. I do it once a month. It says every 6 weeks, but it has fertilizer in it, so I do it like once a month, and it really does help. It's a good product.
So you're saying it has fertilizer in it?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
It has disease control, fertilizer, and insecticide.
And you can use it on other things too.
Absolutely, you can use it on art.
I wish you could buy it in bigger.
Yes, I use it on all five.
Let me caveat that. Read the label. Follow the label is the law. Follow the label. Here's another product, liquid fence for deer and rabbits. Now, what we find with that is if you have to just apply it a lot, and you can buy it pre-mixed, or you can buy it in concentrate and mix it yourself. For the customers that we use this on, our guys learned very quickly that they went to Lowe's and bought a 1-gallon sprayer that has this long wand on it so that they can stay, and they've learned wind direction. They are experts now in wind direction because this stuff smells like liquid death. It is nasty. It's nasty.
And wear gloves.
And you can imagine, we're out all day, like on a trip to Columbia, you're in the car at 6 a.m. and you'll get home till 9 o'clock at night and you've gotten that all over you. No. So, yeah, but it really does work as long as you need to start early, start in the spring, when the deer are starting to find your roses or rabbits or whatever, and just reapply it every few days if you can, certainly after a rain. And that will help. I do have something else we're going to talk about here shortly, though.
Rabbits with roses, a lot of times too, with rabbits, when you first plant a rose and a rabbit will tend to want to go to a new rose. We a lot of times will make metal cages. You just put the cages kind of around them. And then once the rose, after that first year, then you can take the cage off because then the rabbit, the rose is more established and it'll get a lot taller. So then the rabbits will let it alone. When you take the cage off.
Yes, ma'am.
There's a question in the virtual world about relocating roses in March.
You can do that. You can relocate your roses now. I would do it now. You want to do that before they actively start growing. And water them heavily. You move them. Do you have anything else to add to that?
And I would definitely do it very soon. I know I have some that I'm doing next week. It's people just called me, so kind of
Yeah, you want to do it
early.
before they really start growing, because you're going to disturb those roots right when they're needing to start taking up water. So do that during the winter months when they're asleep or halfway asleep is better. Some customers get frustrated with their deer and they do this. Well, it works, but how do you think your rose man gets in there to maintain those roses? That's you usually leave a little bit damaged when you have to do that. So that's what
A deer might eat the road hay that is right off the top.
they reach over. Deadheading. Here's the, roses love to be deadheaded. Once that bloom is spent, you need to get rid of it because the sooner you do, the sooner it's going to make new blooms. So, lots of general knowledge about deadheading. People say, well, deadhead down to the 5-leaf segment. Well, when you just planted a new rose, you want to just take pretty much a little bit off. You want to take the bloom off. You want it in that first year to get that bush to get as big as possible. Now, towards fall, if you put it in the spring, towards fall, you can really start to get your long stem. You can cut them however you want to.
And certain varieties will grow faster than others anyways, but then there are other ones that grow slower, like there's like Mr. Lincoln and Queen Elizabeth and some of the old ones like that. A lot of them grow very fast versus there's other ones like Tiffany and Elizabeth Taylor. They may be a little slower, but anyways, yeah.
And that's typically the more petals it has, the longer it's going to take to regenerate.
Exactly.
So some with fewer petals can turn around much faster. So anyway, that is a good rule of thumb coming down to the 5-leaf. But if they start like in August, our customers' roses are getting really tall. And so we start encouraging them, you go on down because your hurricanes are coming and your bad summer storms and those roses are up here. Plus you can enjoy them when they're up here. So it doesn't hurt, to keep your bush shaped the height that you want. So just deadhead accordingly to keep the bush, if you want your blooming down here, cut it down here. So, and again, we deadhead very heavy in late August because you're going to get that fall flush of blooms and you want, and plus the plant, like I said, the plant is beat up. It's gone through its Japanese beetles and, the summer heat and spider mites. And so it just kind of gives it a fresh start and they look really pretty when you come into late September, October, you're getting that second flush and the bushes are looking great. Fertilize every few weeks, as we talked about, particularly if it's organic. If you are going to use urea or 10-10-10, those man-made products, just be sure you're watering because they can burn. But Milorganite is a great product to use. I mean, you could fertilize them with Milorganite every 2 weeks if you wanted to. As long as you're watering, you're good.
Yeah, Minorganite is like 640 or something like that. So it's a lower number, so it's not gonna hurt anything really.
When it's super, super hot, like when you have those 95-degree, I wouldn't fertilize at all because you'll notice your roses, the blooms get really small And they're just struggling like we are to be out there. So we don't fertilize a lot in July. Then about mid-August, when the nights are starting to get cool, that's when those roses are gonna kick back in. That's when we like to fertilize heavier. Stop completely, like September, by mid-September. And it's not that you really have to. The rose is going to go to sleep or start to slow down based on the soil temperature and nature. Nature tells that rose when it's time to go to sleep. A lot of rose societies will tell you, well, you need to stop doing that because you're encouraging it to continue to grow. It's going to go to sleep when it's ready. What you're doing is you're wasting your money because as the soil temperature drops, it's going to stop taking up those nutrients. So you're just pumping the ground full of stuff that the rose isn't even using. So, late September, just I'll go easy on that. Epsom salts, some people do that. I wouldn't. So much, particularly if you're using like a 10-10-10, because those have a lot of salts in them. So, if you're a really experienced rose grower, maybe do that, but you need to be really careful when you're adding salt because you can oversalt.
What Epsom salt does, but Epsom salt, if you have a rose that only has 1 or 2 canes, it causes more basal shoots. So that's why and usually you only use, like you was a very small amount. I mean,
And dilute it
out on the drip line of the rose, not up close to the cane, because it'll burn a lot. So, but that's what people use mainly for the basal shoots to cause new shoots to come up around the base.
We were talking about yellow leaves. Of course, your bright yellow leaves can mean overwatering, underwatering. If you're getting that dull kind of brown and you're getting these brown patches on it, you probably have spider mites. Because spider mites love roses. There are sprays for them, but most of the miticides are pretty expensive. So the actual best thing you can do, and of course you'll see webbing. If they're really bad, you'll just see these webs all over them. You take your hose, and this is the most organic method you can have used, and you go under that thing with the highest pressure you can with your finger, or you can use a nozzle or whatever. You just want to blast the underside of those leaves, almost to the point of you don't want to hurt the rose or hurt the leaves, but because what you're doing, it's not going to kill them, but it's going to wash them off, and you're interrupting their breeding cycle. And it's probably 95 degrees outside, so the rose is going to love that extra water you're giving it, and you will be shocked if you do that like every 3 days for a week or two, the difference it makes without having to use any chemicals. The rose is getting more water, and you're interrupting that insect breeding cycle. So the rose pretty much only has the leaves to tell us what's wrong with it. So you just really got to pay attention. And of course, we haven't even gotten into all the diseases they get and what that does, how they look. That's a whole different hour lecture on that. Lime, of course, if you do have very acidic soil and your soil test tells you need to apply lime, you can do that in November. Gives it the whole winter to kind of integrate into the soil, but please do your soil test to make sure you need to do that. And then share your roses. Roses are the biggest ministry, I'd like to call it, that you can imagine. Taking roses to people. Now, some people don't like roses, believe it or not. But when you're growing that in your garden, and you take that to a neighbor or a friend, to a nursing home, you've made somebody's day. I mean, that's they're an amazing plant.
A lot of people tell me they take them to the bank, they take them to all the different friends, or if they're going to a party and it's a gift for people that are having a party. It's just something that you're giving them, and that they really think that it means a lot to them. So.
And our garden roses, they bloom and they open up. And of course, they're now hybridizing fragrance back into roses. They know everybody wants that fragrance. And so they're fighting a double battle. They're trying to hybridize them so they don't get all the fungal diseases, but they're also trying to breathe the fragrance back into them. So there are more and more and more coming out now that have really strong fragrance.
Yeah.
And, not only do they look beautiful in the vase as they're opening up, but then you just get that wonderful fragrance as well. Going back to the deer, I don't know if any of you have seen these. We have customers that do very well with these, and then customers that the deer pay no attention to. They're solar powered electronic devices. They have a little strobe light, and then the settings dictate how shrill the little shrill is. If you get to be my age or older, you hardly can hear it. If you're like some of our employees that are 20-somethings, it drives them crazy. We haven't seen that it really affects dogs that much. They don't seem to care, but your employees or your children and grandchildren are going to be annoyed by it. We actually had a customer, we put them in, and the neighbor, which the pool was forever away. I mean, you could barely see the pool. The neighbor got angry because they could hear that going off. And I'm like, really? I can hear them, but they're not that bad, particularly when it's got a pool splashing around. How do you hear that? But anyway, they're great. I think they work better when the deer are approaching from one direction. If you've got a bed where the deer can come in all directions, this may not be effective for you. If you can put it at the front of the bed and they're approaching, they may be a little hesitant to come to the bed. So I think that's good. Now, the next slide, this comes from a member of the Charlotte Rose Society. His name is Satish Prabhu. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of him, but he is the most winning rose exhibitor in the country. He has won 120 or 112, something like that, national trophy challenges where he takes his roses and flies them all over the country to the national conventions, and he wins every time. And we're so lucky to have him in the Charlotte Rose Society.
He used to live in Columbia, and his kids live in Charlotte, and
so they moved to
they
Weddington.
entirely moved up here.
But he had deer. Now he's replanted all his roses. They moved, so he has a couple hundred, I think. He's downsizing. He's getting out of the exhibiting now. But luckily for us, he does come to every meeting, and he's a wonderful source of knowledge. If any of you are interested in growing roses, the Charlotte Rose Society meets the second Monday of the month at the Park Road Baptist Church, across from Park Road Shopping Center there in Charlotte. So see me afterwards. I can get your name on the list if you're even considering it, and I'll just put you on the email list. We'd love to have you. But he swears by this. He says that the deer came to his yard there in Weddington, and he mixed up this concoction, and that the mama deer even brought the little fawn in there, and the fawn was kind of bedding in his roses, and they did not eat his roses after he sprayed this. So he claims that will do it.
What is his name? I'd love to look him up.
Satish, Satish.
Okay.
Prabhu, Prabhu. He has a Facebook page, Growing Roses with Satish. That's a public Facebook page. He does great stuff. I don't think doesn't do it as much as he did, but really go back and see the stuff he writes. And he writes a lot of articles. Yeah. He'll post what's going on and what to do, and he's really good at busting the myths. Like, you don't need to do that. They tell you no, you don't need to do that. He really simplifies it, and you would not believe if you went to his rose garden. It's unbelievable. He's, being a doctor, he's very chemical oriented and educated. So he has his soil to perfection, and those roses, they cannot be beat. Many people in the country. The next exhibitor down from him lives in California, and that guy has half the national challenges that Dr. Prabhu does. Now, we give Dr. Prabhu all the credit, but we know that Mrs. Prabhu does an awful lot of work in that rose garden, and she doesn't get a lot of credit. So I see the pictures of her doing all that mulch, and then he comes to the rose meeting. I put out mulch. I wouldn't put out that mulch. I saw the pictures. But this is good stuff. I would definitely try this if you have a deer issue. I'd love to hear from you, if it works for you. We're gonna start to wrap up a little bit. Few more issues. Powdery mildew, roses get powdery mildew. That usually occurs for us mostly in the fall. We're getting those kind of cool nights, cool damp nights. Powdery mildew doesn't like water. It likes air, but it doesn't like water. So if you can water your roses, overhead water them, squirt the leaves down. If it hasn't rained in a while, that actually helps because the spores can't generate when they're wet. Now, downy mildew, on the other hand, it takes wet to encourage downy mildew. We won't get into all of that, but anyway, there's chemicals for all this stuff, but it's really better when you see it just to, cut it out and get rid of it because it does spread. So that's just really the best thing to do with it. Plant your roses before they get that morning sun before the leaves dry out. Here's a big one, and we were talking about that before the meeting started. This is rose rosette disease. It's spread by an airborne mite that it doesn't have legs. I don't even think it has eyes. This mite is blown in the wind, and it lands on the rose, and it is infected with this virus. And as it feeds on the rose, it transfers that virus to the rose. That rose then becomes infected and can infect the next layer of mites, and then it can completely decimate an entire rose garden if left untreated. So anytime you see that, and it looks like, they call it unexpected growth. When you see something really weird that isn't growing like the rest of the rose bush, that's probably what that is. A couple of myths about it. If you see it at the top of the bush, you can try to follow that cane all the way down to the ground and cut it off. You probably have a 25% chance of saving that bush.
More than that.
If it's running out towards the bottom, you probably can't because it's already made its way in.
Especially if it's only a little bit at the very, because usually it starts at the very top and goes along. That has been on there for quite a long time.
Mhm.
And then it probably is in the fruit system, but usually if you cut it off at the ground, you can save the bush a lot of times, and it's not spreading to your other ones. But if it's, and usually you mark it, some type of ribbon or something, so that it'll remind you. Because then if it comes back out, then you know that you need to take it out to in the fruit system. So at least you're giving it a chance. Because some people will say, that I'm digging it up. Well, you can do that.
Yeah.
Well, you really should. If it's better, it's a $20 rose bush. Well, I don't know, now they're $40, but it's not worth infecting all your other roses for one bush to try to save that one bush. So if you get it, get rid of it. If your neighbor has it, tell him to get rid of it.
That's the problem a lot of times is your neighbors won't take it out and then it spreads to yours. So how do you?
Yeah.
But there's a couple of ways that you can identify it. You can't always go by, a lot of people say, well, it's got those red leaves. That's a lot of roses, particularly in the fall, when it's cool, that new growth is red. So you'll think that that's what it is. Thorny, they're like, oh, it has tons of thorns. But you have to go by how the bush grows. Some bushes, if they're very thorny, well, if it's new growth and it's growing fast, you fertilized them, they can be kind of rubbery like those are. But one of the things that I find is telltale is on rose rosette, the stem is fatter than the stem it's growing out of. And we know that doesn't occur in nature like that. So anytime you see a thin cane and then you see this big fat thing that's growing weird, that's it. You need to get rid of it. A lot of people confuse Roundup damage with rose rosette because they see weird growth and they're like, oh, I've got that rose rosette disease. This is how roses respond when they have been exposed to Roundup vapor. They don't even have to be sprayed with it. We've had people that spray Roundup over here and their rose garden is over in that room over there. And they're like, well, I didn't spray Roundup over there. It's all about how heavy the air is, and if you pump up that sprayer, you put that Roundup in there and pump that thing up, and I see people on the highways or these long people, they got that backpack sprayer on, and they have pumped that thing up, and they're holding it, and they're just walking and spraying. You don't realize that cloud of poison is just going. So, and you can't see it, it's a vapor. So the way I do Roundup is you barely pump up the sprayer and then you turn the nozzle so that it's dribbling out. You don't want to create that fine mist. Yes, it's easier, but it's better to basically use your nozzle to paint that weed and not spray. You want to just get the poison on it, but you don't want to spray. So, and that it can ruin a rose bush. It can take years to recover. Like one like that could possibly take years to recover from it.
Would you just cut it back?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And it's great. Well, I shouldn't talk about our customers, but you'll have a customer that will say, well, what is that? We're like, well, it has Roundup damage. Well, nobody sprayed Roundup in my yard. Well, why are all the weeds around your rose bush brown and dead? Someone has sprayed something. No.
Well,
I told them not to do that.
when we're saying Roundup damage, it also can be, sometimes in the springtime, we'll see also pre-emergent, which is still a herbicide.
Like
And
U40,
like
anything.
the little yellow pellets that when you're doing the spreaders,
Mhm.
and if they do it underneath the rose, and then it sucks up that, and so then it's going to cause the same type of damage too.
Well, our last slide is December. We made it throughout the year. And what we do in December is we tip prune the roses. You take them down just enough, like those were hybrid teas that were quite this tall. You take them down about half. And what that does, when you get these heavy snows, which we don't get very often, but we do get them, or ice storms, that structure of that rose is so stiff right there that it's not going to hurt it. So that's why we kind of tip prune them. And here you can see this is the roses. They were pretty tall. And so in the spring, that was how he cut. No, this was tip pruned in December. This was the end of the growing season. They're tall. In December, he has kind of tip pruned them down to make them sturdy. And then this is that spring pruning, like the hand. So that gives you the full range there. And then really that's really it. I have a ton of pictures, but I think we're about out of time. So do we have any questions?
So,
I think one, go ahead.
Japanese beetles. They just
Thank you.
eat all my roses and stuff. I mean, I pick them off, but put my names every day, every night, morning, night. Do you have anything?
You know, the best thing to do with your roses, the beetles come here usually the first week of June after the first big rain. That's when they start emerging. And they can last anywhere from 6 weeks to some people don't get rid of them until September. Particularly out in your rural areas, those farms, they can the roses is hard. The best thing we tell people to do is there's really nothing, if you don't want to spray for them, and really you're only, we do professionally because our customers want it. But what we tell people is the best thing you can do after you have that first flush of blooms in late May, June, and about the time the beetles come out, they're finishing that first flush. Go ahead and prune your roses, like kind of clean them off. And so that way it's going to take 4 or 5 weeks before you're going to get your next bloom cycle. But that's during their feeding time. And there's nothing for them to eat. Now they may still eat the leaves, that new growth. Another thing you can do if you don't want to do that is cut your roses as soon as those guard petals, sepals come down, because that rose will then open up in a vase inside. but you don't want to leave the food out there for them. You need to just deadhead often, particularly anything yellow is a really big one. They love yellow roses and fragrance. They're after that fragrance.
Yeah, a lot of the different scents, they really like, they're like
Right.
us, they smell.
You don't want to use the traps. The big joke in the rose world is if you're going to use the traps, you put them in your neighbor's yard because that's just going to attract more. Squishing them, apparently you don't want to do that because that gives off pheromone that they smell. So, just dumping them in the soapy water to drown them. But there's, if you don't want to spray like 7 or.
Well, then what is the recommended spray that someone who doesn't have an applicator license can use?
You can spray 7 in that red bottle.
Or they have the powder also, which the powder will stay on the foliage longer. But it's all depending on how much rain you have too, so.
But that's, there is really no miracle answer for that. It's more of just not giving them what they want, and hopefully they start to go somewhere else.
Usually beetles, you see more in the outer skirts of town versus new neighborhoods. They've never been treated, and using treating your lawn for grubs, because the grubs are the Japanese beetles. So if you treat your lawn, but your neighbors would have, everyone has to.
So a lot of our customers for the neighborhood is highly manicured lawns. They don't have as many because they're putting grub control and their lawn services are taking care of that. So.
I have another question. I had a couple of hybrid, beautiful fragrant roses, and they had turned into these wild roses.
That happens.
Can you repeat?
The question is, I had a rose that, let's say, was a yellow rose, and then suddenly 2 years later, I'm getting some weird growth out of it, and the blooms have turned red. And it probably only blooms once a year. And what that is, that rose was a grafted rose, and they had grafted your yellow rose onto what's called Dr. Huey rootstock. And because that rootstock is very hardy, that's why they graft the roses to them, because it helps the rose do better, grow better. And what happens is it starts to take over the rose, and it will eventually choke out what was grafted on it. And so you'll start to get that, and it will eventually kill that off. And so you no longer have the rose you purchased. You now have the rootstock has murdered your rose.
But then, because I have another one that it's starting to happen to.
Yeah, once they do that, it's very hard. You can cut because you see them first, they start coming out as suckers, and they have these long, thin little leaves. They don't have the regular rose leaves. So you can cut them off down kind of right under the soil. But usually when it starts doing that, it's gonna continue.
What I a lot of times will do if one starts doing that is in the winter months when it is semi-sleeping, I will dig them up and then I'll take off that root that is coming up. Is the rose is sleeping, and then I'll replant it again. Because then you're getting rid of that rootstock that is trying to come up. Because a lot of times you're going to be constantly cutting them off because you can't get it down low enough. Versus digging it up, then you can get it really low and then replanting the roots. So yeah. Seems like a lot of effort, but if you really want it that bad, that's what you have to do.
The first time it happened, I dug it up and just got rid of it,
Mhm.
but it happened again.
It doesn't happen that often for us. It might just be where are you getting the rose from?
Yeah, so where's the good place to buy me roses?
Well, Witherspoon had a site here in Charlotte, but they're our biggest competitor. But they have now closed that, so you can mail order from them, and you're going to get a really good quality rose. They're out of Durham. Mail order any of your Jackson and Perkins or Edmonds roses are good mail order. when you get into a lot of the specialty roses that aren't from those companies, you're gonna get a very small plant. What they do is they go in and do cuttings, and then they're gonna sell you that 1 or 2 year old little cutting, and it's gonna have a hard time in our summer. So you really want to get those nicer plants from a very reliable source that you're getting that 2 year, 2 or 3 year, #1 grade rose.
There was a question, but I think you answered it. They wanted to know if the Bayer product worked on Japanese beetles.
It can help with that because it is a systemic. It is drawing up into the plant, but it's, if they're heavily investing, it may not, because the beetle has to eat the rose to die. So it's still going to damage your rose. Again, during the beetle period, it's best to just keep your roses deadheaded so there's not a lot of open blooms out there attracting them.
And then someone asked if you would share your contact for the local compost supplier you mentioned.
I don't remember who
Is
that.
it Visions?
No, if I heard it, I would know, but
And it's leaf compost.
it's leaf mulch.
McCollum's?
Prison?
No, that sounds good. I think it
McCollum?
starts with an H. And I think they're in Monroe. Big operation. It would be a big. I'll find out and let you all know. I'll let Nancy know, and then whoever that is at home, just ask Nancy. I will get that information for you. Because I've written them a lot of checks this year, so it won't be hard for me to figure that
Two
out.
big loads that I've used.
You see, today was just a general overview. Again, I could spend an hour just on fertilizer, an hour just, so hopefully you got an idea of what to do to maintain your roses. And again, we would love to have all of you in the Charlotte Rose Society. So please just email me. Nancy has my contact information. If you would love to join the Charlotte Rose Society. It sounds like society, like it's some fancy group. It's this group right here. It's rose growers, gardeners, and we talk about roses. We have refreshments and we have a good time. So it's a fun group. It's very casual. So that's it.
If you have any questions anytime throughout the year, please send us pictures of things and we can answer any questions you may have, because we get questions all over. I've even had people from California send me, and I'm like, I'm from there, so I don't really, but we do get questions from all over, so, yeah.
Especially since you're the first thing that comes up.
That's right, that's right.
Oh, that's beautiful.
This was our previous home. This was the home of the Perfect Rose for 13, 14 years, and we just built a new house. And but this was Robert's garden.
Oh my God.
You can see the horticulture guy coming out. There's all kinds of plants.
That's powerful.
But
I'm happy to see the roses mixed in.
I like to mix things like that. And I also like to mix colors because it kind of makes things stand out more, I think.
Beautiful.
Yes, I need that.
This here, sometimes you'll see this on a rose, and that's called philody. And philody is usually, it may happen more in the fall of the year when the temperatures start to change, because it's from a lot of fertilizer that is the bloom is basically.
Well, we really don't know what totally causes it. It's just environmental issues. But you'll see the sepals and the blooms get all mixed together, and it can look 1,000 different ways. It's just really bizarre when you see, because a lot of people will freak and think they have rosette disease, but it's done this weird.
I've even seen it in France. We were in France, and I saw it on a rose. And I'm like, really? I mean, so it's everywhere. It's not just here. So
These are some of our customers.
Yeah.
That's in Colombia.
Older Columbia.
That's in Salisbury. She got rose rosette in those and basically we've had to remove about all of them.
Oh.
And they've never come back with that. That's like the third year after we were taking care of them, but it's never build that up again. And this is a couple in Spartanburg and I call it like a rose farm. They grow them just in rows like that, but they take them to all kinds of people. I mean, they share their roses. This is a customer in Moxville.
It's voluptuous.
Yeah, that's Belinda's dream. That shrub rose I was telling you about, it stays covered in blooms. You can cut them, you see they have strong necks on them. That's voluptuous.
Yeah, that's a nice sized bloom for a shrub rose.
It is, they're, not like that, so they're not, and it's fragrant too, it's really nice. That was our kitty cat. She's gone now, we have new kitty cats. But that's it. Again, let me know. Oh, we have the door prizes.
Right, is your mulch supplier Henson's?
Henson's,
It's Pineville.
okay,
Henson's.
the mulch supplier is Henson's in Pineville.
Oh,
So sorry, I had town wrong. Alrighty, and then if you didn't know what permatil was, just come check that out so you can see what that is. The first door prize will be the dormant oil.
Yeah, you can have it back.
Last three numbers, 143.
That's it.
Yay!
Hey. Great, thank you.
We have daconil. This is great for your black spot and most any kind of diseases you get. You want to be very careful with that. Don't spray it when it's hot. Spray it in the morning because it is a contact fungicide, but it's wonderful stuff. 142. This is the Mac Daddy Rose and Flower Care. That is really good stuff, truly. So if you don't have roses, please get those. 141.
They're all gonna be
I
flash.
know. Well, at least there are different places to live. If they were all right together, I could really. The nasty, death smelling.
Will they keep cats away? I want to collect the sweet gumballs out of the tiki garden and throw them in my beds to see if it'll keep the cats away.
146 for the nasty smelling deer stuff. We have thorn strippers. Complete with a sticker that says compliments of the perfect road. That's free. 140.
Yes.
I am Nick. Where's the hat? It works really.
So how you do?
You got your hand.
Oh. Hey, I'm the one that showed up here last night. Last night. And I called Nancy and I'm like, where are you? And she's like, I'm re-eating in a restaurant. Where are you? I'm here. That's not. But that happens when you get older. I did it at Christmas food with my family. We showed up at my sister's house a day early for Christmas and they're all looking at me like, 147 for the t-shirt. And last but certainly not least, the coveted perfect rose hat. 145.
So truth be known, I gave Jack the wrong date when we first communicated. And that's the day we put on the calendar, so he was not being.
But she did correct it in all the other emails and I just missed it. She was correct.
What you did, because it stuck first.
Yeah,
Well, the
I have
lady
to
put on
it
a calendar.
well, we put it on immediately.
I show up at church.
I have to ask a question, if you, I don't have a lot of sun. So if I grow any roses, I usually grow them in a big container.
Growing roses in large containers.
Every-
Let's take it.